It's a banner you day. Congratulations for showing up at SmarterUmedia to get a little smarter today. Remember, if you get 1% smarter every day, you're 37 times smarter at the end of the year. And we have a guarantee today from Laura Wheeler that she's going to make you smarter in 2 minutes, or individually, she's going to come and give you your time back. So, with that, how can we possibly lose? Laura has worked in large companies helping them solve all the riddles, but one of the big ones, which is how do you make revenue? How do you make it work? How do you make the model work? And now she is a bona fide entrepreneur, having co founded a company, RVNU, which I pronounce RVNU, which is perfect because her husband graduated from Texas Tech University. So, with that, Laura, welcome to Smarter You.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to be here.
I should have given your number one qualification. She is now club
Oh.
club champion
Oh.
in tennis. So you can see that she has many, many talents. We never wait. We go straight to you making us smarter. So I'm going to reach over and get my
Oh
friend,
boy.
the chicken timer, to get going. And Laura,
The
make us
dreaded
smarter.
chicken timer.
Yeah, the dreaded chicken timer. I think you can.
Oh.
I think you can handle anything, but I'm sure you can handle the chicken timer. All
All
right,
right, let's
and
do
let her
it.
go.
All right. So we live in a society called America, and
Mm,
it's America's dream to become an entrepreneur, to have your own destiny moving forward. That's what we've been sold. And the way that that's manifested in my life or my career is B2B SaaS, so business to business, software as a service. However, there is a glooming cloud over the community. And that statistic is that 90% of startups actually fail.
mm,
And that statistic actually hasn't changed over the last 30 years.
yeah.
It is my assumption and what I've seen from my own past experiences of trying to grow revenue or go to market in early stage startups that it's not necessarily about the product that's being built or a misaligned solution or problem that you're trying to solve. It's actually execution in that $0 to $20 million journey.
Yeah.
And a lot of founders don't have access to that. So, what my whole goal is for RVNU is to democratize access to go to market resources, to knowledge, to more founders so that we can increase that survival rate. And typically, what we see happening is there are common missteps along the way. We've mapped patterns back into what are those common missteps? How can we avoid them? How can we bring them to light? And how can we bring this to more technical founders that might not actually have the experience of go to market? Because at the end of the day, the blood and life and time that we spend on this earth, we should be doing things that we want to be doing. And this is their life goal, to bring this to fruition, to solve a big, hairy, audacious problem. And if we can help the survival rate just 1% for these founders, I think that is the ultimate goal of why I want to democratize what I've learned and bring that to the masses.
I love
How
it.
did I do?
I think you have a little time. Look, oh no, that's
Oh
friggin' crazy. Stop, stop. We're done. We're actually
no.
not
Yeah.
going to talk
All right.
anymore. You hit the mark. I mean, dang.
Oh
Um,
man. That's
I
funny.
I love that it's hairy and audacious. That's really all
Yeah.
I heard, was that we're solving finally
Yeah.
the hairy and audacious problems. I,
Yeah.
um, I think it's terrific that you're trying to sort of solve the 90% failure rate. I think I'm going to go somewhere you probably didn't think I would go first, which is unfortunately what people are subjected to every time they come to Smarter You Media. Um, I think most people who start businesses don't know what they're getting into, and really not everybody should be an entrepreneur.
That might be actually pretty accurate. There's being a founder, regardless of what industry, product, thing that you are doing. I do believe that as a first time entrepreneur, there is a huge learning curve. And some people don't have the stomach for it. Some people don't have the financial means, some don't have the time, and that's okay. I've seen a lot of people try and then go back and do something else and work for someone else. It is the learnings along the way and the perseverance, if you want to keep going and you still believe in it, that that is what the resources that we want to provide over to those folks through that journey, if they continue to want to drive and that have that perseverance. And so, it's a really, really hard thing to do. There are many milestones and landmines along the way of becoming an entrepreneur and or founder, especially in that B2B SaaS world.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Looking at your website, it feels a little like you're going into a military site with all of the acronyms, B2B, SaaS,
I
sort of.
know,
Oh,
I
really,
know,
really.
I
Uh,
know.
but I didn't start out to be a bummer. I mean, I just think in some ways it's like most decisions, it's good to think about them, but not too much. And
Yeah.
the 10% who do make it, probably are not that wildly different from the others. There's an
No.
element of luck that comes into it, and there's an
Yeah.
awful lot of persistence. You get knocked down and you go, I'm going to pick
You
myself
gotta
back
get
up and
back
keep
up.
going. And that's
Yeah.
the joy of the whole wonderful experience.
Yeah.
When you say 0 to $20 million,
Yes.
which you have sort of in your world, I think most of us start at zero, and
Yeah.
that's the
Maybe
reality.
negative.
Oh yeah, well
Yeah.
sure. You're putting money on credit cards. I
Yeah.
mean, the ways that
Mm-hmm.
people find their way are really
Yeah.
difficult. I think the trying to democratize this process, or I would say really give access to more people so that they
Yes.
have a chance to execute, makes a lot of sense. Because it's, what do you mean when you say, that it's an execution problem? Dig deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. The 0 to 20 million, just like you said, you're pulling resources. It's basically heroics at that point. You're doing everything manually. You are throwing spaghetti at the wall. Let's to have every acronym in there. We are tapping into our network. It's basically heroics, as we call it. And whether you are bootstrapping money into from your own bank account, trying to build something, you're looking for signal within the market to prove that the problem that you're trying to solve is actually very valid, and or the product that's against it is something valid that a customer would actually spend money on. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, we do want to make money, and that's kind of why we're here, American Dream.
Yeah.
But it's that 0 to 20 where you are going to face probably the hardest headwinds. You're going to have things in your ecosystem like people dangling cash. I cannot tell you how many emails I get as a founder of my own company that are dangling cash to try to buy into RVNU. And
Hmm.
while in that kind of mode, while you're building and you're just trying to make things work, it might feel like that is a viable option. What founders don't often know is if they take on investments, they're selling a part of their company. And if they continue to do that and take on money, yes, you might be able to build a product, a better product, a more robust. You might be able to hire a salesperson and get sales off your plate. You might be able to have a fancy tech stack. But at the end of the day, if you're not placing the right bets at the right time during that 20 to or $0 to $20 million journey, for lack of better words, you are just lighting cash on fire. And it's poor misaligned resources to where you go back to zero and you're going to have to ask for more money and you're selling more of your company. At the end of the day, even if you do sell your company or IPO, the equity that you own in your company, that hard earned work, your idea ends up being a fraction of where you started. And that's what we're actually trying to avoid is if founders can actually grow at a sustainable rate.
Right.
It might take longer, but that's what we're trying to help with is placing the right bets at the right time. And there is a formula.
Yeah, I know there's a many part formula that you lead people sort of through, and of course that's the
Mm-hmm.
service that you offer is somebody who is trying but doesn't really have the expertise because they haven't been around
Yeah.
a whole bunch of different businesses. That's what you want to offer them, is a path, right? Do you
Yeah.
want to detail a little bit about when you think it's best for someone to find you or to find help
Yeah.
outside of themselves?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting I will even pose another question is, can someone learn before learning the lesson, or do they have to learn the lesson the hard way? And I think that's what we're trying to experience or test out. Look, you touch a hot plate, you know now not to touch the hot plate. Do
Right.
you have to actually build a failed go to market or a failed company to be able to build an actual company? I don't think so. What we're trying to disprove is how can we get ahead of that? And there's a lot of mechanisms and things and that are unnaturally happening in that $0 to $20 million journey that companies are actually doing. They should never hire someone like me in house before 20 million. They should never have a CRO. They should never have an operations person because we are very expensive. We are a very expensive cost to the business. And typically what happens is, as a technical founder, you don't want to be a seller. So what we see is they try to push that off the plate too fast. And what ends up happening is, more than likely you don't have product market fit. That means that your customers haven't really realized the value and an ROI back into the business. They're probably going to churn. And then way down the line, you're going to have less revenue and you're going to have a layoff. We saw that about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, where the ZERP era of investments, just let's pour money into founders. Let's hire all these huge sales teams, but we don't have product market fit. Our sales teams aren't working. They don't know who to go after. They can't really speak to the competition. And then we start to lose money and then we have to do layoffs. And that, not only from a perspective of like, hey, I just sold a lot of my company to raise a Series B, but the culture diminishes, the confidence in the founder diminishes. And that's really where that 90% failure actually comes from.
Yeah, it's the timing's, excuse the expression, timing's a bitch. I mean, it's
It is.
not easy to do
Mm-mm.
for some, no matter how experienced you are.
Yeah,
And
correct.
when you talk about ROI, return on investment, and what those things, what those calculations come into the process, I'm going to take steps back so that we're
Mm,
really basic. And I
yeah.
think that's helpful because for people who dream of starting a business, and again, I didn't mean to be the dark shadow saying, or to start out by saying it's tough, but I think it's good to know it's tough. I think
Yeah.
it's helpful not to sort of imagine when you're working for someone else
Yes.
who's built something or is an established company that you can just walk out the door and all of a sudden you're making the same salary that you are and the like. On the other hand,
Yeah.
for those of us who really do want the American dream, want to build something. So when you make that decision, when you sort
Yeah.
of think, I'm going to go and dig in, what do you think you do before you quit your day gig
Mm,
and you
mm.
head out? What is the checklist
Yep.
I can give myself that says, okay, now I at least know enough to know I should try?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really the start of where the idea and framework come together. The first piece is, you obviously have a hypothesis. You have a hypothesis, there's the problem that people are willing to pay for, period. That it is big enough that somebody's going to pay for it, that you need to build a product against it, as far as in our world of B2B SaaS. And then you need to test that hypothesis. Too often we go from hypothesis and then we just build a product. But at the end of the day, there are 3 critical steps that you need to think about as you are taking that problem into building a MVP, as we call it, which is a minimum viable prototype, not product. But the first is analyzing your market and understanding who's actually going to pay for this. So, who is my ideal customer? Who would actually use this and find value? You need to document that. The second piece is, who else is doing this on the market and why is it failing? Why is this still a problem? So it's a
Yeah.
competitive analysis. And then rounding out the market analysis, what's my value prop? So if not them, why us? Like, why this solution? And then you take all of that market analysis, you package it up, and then based on that, you go and size the market. We like to say if it's less than 100 million, I mean, actually, if it's less than 50 billion, as far as like a TAM, SAM, SOM, if you've ever done that, just to welcome the other acronyms.
Yeah,
But
here
if
she
you're
comes.
thinking,
You're like being around my buddy who was a captain in the
We're
Navy.
g-
And so you just translate
yeah,
them every time, please.
we're gonna have to like provide a glossary. But essentially, what you do is you look at the total addressable market. Like, how big is the actual market that I'm going after?
Yeah.
Good for you. Investors will look at that and see dollar signs. But at the end of the day, you need to understand that the product or the MVP that you're actually building to solve that problem is not even just, it's not the total addressable market because you can't get to all those people. You don't have the product to actually service that. So then you go one level deeper into a serviceable, addressable market. So how big is that? So, okay, now if I could actually build something, if how big is that market? So it's a slice of that total addressable. And then here's the kicker that everybody always forgets is the serviceable obtainable market. So based on the product that I have built today,
Right.
what is that small slice? And if that is not $10 million at least, then you do not have a big enough idea. You have to validate that the idea or the product that you're building and the problem that you're solving for is bigger than that. Then and only then you gain strategic alignment to build something to against your competitors to somebody that really cares that will buy it. And at the end of the day, that people will pay for. And you're testing your hypothesis. So that is what we call idea market fit. It's where you start.
Yeah. And I'm going to go simple again. So
Go simple.
as a simple guy, that's what I'm going to sort of do is first of all say that what you're specifically talking about is a subset of all markets. So
Yes.
SaaS, so software as a service,
Woo.
is specifically what you're addressing mostly.
Correct.
So there
Yes.
are a lot of people who want to go and start other things like
Yeah.
a restaurant, or they want
Yeah.
to but everything that you said matters for all businesses. Before
I
I
do
decide
agree.
I'm going to take the jump, before I'm standing,
Yes.
in the quarry that is now a pool, I'm going to go down underneath and see if there are rocks before I jump.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
the great metaphor for that is what you're talking about, which is get ready first. I mean, learn something. And I, I, I oftentimes think it's a great idea, particularly if you're young and you want to be an entrepreneur, to go and work in the sector.
Oh, yeah.
So if you'll never learn more about what works and what doesn't work than by being in the middle of it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have that and you think, I want to start this thing, it is a great idea to be there and be a part of
Yes.
it. So I think
Yes.
that's a great thing to do. And then the analysis that you were talking about can work differently with numbers. In other words, when
Yeah.
you're talking about SaaS, software as a service, then you're talking about that need to distill the categories down into at
Yeah.
least a $10 million target. If, on the other hand, you see that people do very well at burrito shops, and there's
Mm-hmm.
not one in your neighborhood, and that's something that would be a great life choice for you, then
Yes.
that's a different analysis, but you still can go and do all that sort of background. So
Yeah.
let's use my burrito truck for just
All
a
right,
minute.
let's do it.
So let's just take that analysis and give
Mm-hmm.
me what would I do to sort of go out and
Yeah.
try to see if my burrito truck makes sense in this neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, more than likely, and I love this because we're going to use it as a burrito truck, is I would say this is a gut feeling, but probably 9 times out of 10, the idea to either start a business or be an entrepreneur comes from the pain that you've already felt yourself. So I'm going to go ahead. See, even the thumbs up there. What I'm probably going to assume is that Steve, you have been around the area that you are, and you've been hungry for a burrito and you can't find it. And so that really makes you probably mad. It probably makes you really mad. And
Yeah.
that's a problem. Now, let's think about that burrito truck. You have this great idea. Like, wouldn't it be really nice? I close my eyes and I say, how can I solve this problem? Well, you know what? I think we should have a burrito truck right by, where I live, or right by my work, or right by my gym, because gym and burritos go well together. So then let's move in. So that's my hypothesis. I think that a burrito truck would do really well because I can't find one, and I really want one. All right, let's go into market analysis. Now we say, well, who's my ideal customer profile? Like, who would buy these burritos? Well, first of all, probably hungry people, me.
Yeah, and you, yes.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, where are areas that are either underserved with burritos? They are burritoless. Where do people need quick access to food? Maybe it's something like that. And so you start to map out I would say, the characteristics of the people. They might have a little expendable money. They're not going home. They're not packing their lunch. They want to go find a burrito outside.
Yeah.
Then we start to think, okay, well, is anybody else doing it? Are there any other burrito trucks in town that could come and, be a competitor to mine? Maybe I just haven't found it yet. And that's also a problem too. So maybe it's just not in the proper area. So then you start to think about, who is my competition? Who else is out there? Okay, well, if people like burritos, why would they choose a burrito over a salad? Or why would they choose a burrito over like Chinese food? So you start to do this competitive analysis. You start to build and like test your hypothesis. You start to do demographic background and analysis on the people that you want to serve that would be paying money for this burrito. And then at the end of the day, you say, okay, well, how big is the city that I live in? When it was this burrito empire going to come to fruition? So what is that market sizing? Do I live in a city that's 80,000 people, 1,000 people? So what is like the traffic that I would potentially see? Is it worth it? And then, okay, well, now that I have all of this information, I'm actually going to build a product or a food truck or a service that would actually solve this problem based on all that analysis that I did. And you might have gone in with a food truck, but maybe it's not a food truck. Maybe it's something else. And I think that's where, even if it's not SaaS or software as a service, you can still apply the ideal market fit to really anything that you're going to be an entrepreneur for.
Well, 100%. And I think that it doesn't just apply, it probably is great before you're in. So right now we're at early stage, right? We're going to walk through this conversation and this process together today, because you don't get that very often. I mean, honestly, it's hard to sort of, when you're really going through it. So right now we're just at the let's begin stage, right? Do I really want to go and start this thing? And distilling it down into the simplest equation, it's sort of, you need to go out, you need to find out what the market looks like, which in real terms just sort of means how much is being made, how much money is out there, right? And the next thing you need to know is, well, who's doing it? In other words, am I going to be a little fish in a very vast pond with sharks all over? Because you want to know before you get swimming out there. So you're going to go through all of that, and then you're going to dare to do what frightens a lot of us, which just, you're going to put numbers together. And I think it's a very good indication, if you are thinking of starting something and you feel an itch that won't go away as soon as you start trying to apply numbers so that you put a financial model together. Because that's what it's about. As you said, it's not just about making money, which is, of course, the thing. It's about satisfaction. It's about life. It's about all of that. But you're not going to be very satisfied or happy if it doesn't work. And what you're doing is you've taken all your time and maybe resource and put it in something that doesn't work.
Yes. And the crazy thing is that if we think about it on the flip side, let's say we didn't do the analysis or the thing, and you're sitting there with your buddies, you are really craving a burrito, and you're like, man, I really wish there was a food truck. Let's go. Yeah. And you built it. Think about the money that you spent building it, the time, the marketing. You're just going to go ahead and, like, before doing all of the homework first, that's where 9 times out of 10 you're going to fail. And most startups fail because you didn't have the proper foundation to stand on. You don't know who to go after. There was already a burrito truck, I just didn't see it. Chipotle around the corner. Oh man. Oops. And then you're down money and time. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs and founders get themselves in trouble.
And you used a word earlier on that I'm going to go back to in just a second, which is called runway. And
Mm.
we know what that means when we fly, but sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense to us in this context. But
Mm-hmm.
before we leave just sort of the initial phase, I want to say that the resources that exist out there now are pretty remarkable. So I would say, whereas once upon a time you might have had to have a challenge finding what a financial
Yeah.
model looked like, you really don't anymore. I mean, any AI that you can, even the free
Oh.
version of any AI is better,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's better
Yes.
than you would have had anywhere, anytime in the entire
Yeah.
world. So to
Yes.
take advantage of that and go
Mm.
in and start a dialogue that is just like this. I mean, take Laura Wheeler to the AI, plug it in, and you will have a start at
Mm-hmm.
getting a plan and having a collaboration with the AI, which is what
Yeah.
it's really good at, and
Yeah.
have that give you some background so you know a thing or two. So we get
Yeah.
there. Now,
Yes.
Runway. What the heck do
Whew.
you mean by Runway?
Oh, Runway. So Runway is really important because it's the mirror or the visual aspect of how much time you have to invest in this problem, product, thing that you're building before you run out of runway. And that's essentially cash and or time. Everything in the business, effort, time, resources, expertise, really goes back to capital and money. So when you're thinking about runway, it is identifying how much this is costing you as a human, your bank account, and calculating how much time do I have before I need to be profitable and make more money. And typically that is your runway. And so when I am developing a product, a food truck, a service, I need to know and to look forward of where I'm going to spend investments of my time, where it's going to return the investment and extend my runway. I also need to understand the risk that I'm going to take if it is going to diminish my runway. And so when we talk about runway, it's really about the time you have until you run out of money and or time of building your entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And that can manifest itself in different ways.
It's a fabulous metaphor because
It
if
is.
you don't have enough runway in your plane,
Yeah.
we know what happens.
Yeah, you run right into that field.
It's
In
not a good
LA,
thing.
right into the ocean.
It is not a good thing. So,
It
I
is not a
mean,
good thing.
that is, I think, the where it comes from. But I would say that the sort of understanding of what that process is, again,
Yeah.
we just came from, hey, we're going to actually dare to put a financial model together. Well,
Yeah.
part of your
Mm-hmm.
financial model 100% needs to be a simple equation that is, I think this is how much it's going to cost with my best estimate to
Yes.
set up
Yes.
and to run the thing. The other
Mm-hmm.
piece of the equation that's pretty important is how quickly does it make something and how
Yep.
much does it make? And how
Correct.
conservative can I be so that I don't build something great and then run into the field or find
Yeah.
myself in the ocean if I'm in LA. So
Yes.
those are those are very important pieces of the equation to
Yes.
sort of get you just thinking about being there, but it never ends, right? So this is what I love about your
It
background, because
doesn't.
you've been in organizations that are doing well, but it never ends. You always have to take all of those elements and
Always.
keep them in mind. So let's fast
Mm-hmm.
forward a little bit. We've gone through a couple of
Mm-hmm.
steps. Let's be at the more established company, the
Yeah.
companies that you work with, and how do you come in and help make us smarter and better at
Mm-hmm.
doing that so we don't find ourselves surprised?
Yeah. Oh, as my background is in revenue operations, and I really feel like that is where the finance and operations, like how we are actually spending the money, comes to fruition. And while, yes, they typically call this like, oh, we're going to do some annual financial planning and this is going to be beautiful. You
Yeah.
should always have a pulse of, I always like to call it like a monthly reoccurring revenue or monthly revenue in and out. I like to actually ratio that out. So, how much money did I spend this month on marketing, headcount, tech, my burritos, my tortillas, my cheese? And then how much am I actually bringing in? And if that ratio, so you're dividing out plus in, you need to actually know that if it is less than a 3 to 1, then you're not a profitable business. And here's the deal: that might be okay to start with because you do need to put some risk in the business. You need to spend
Yeah.
to get more. The dangerous piece is that if that does not correct itself and you are not a profitable business, that is when your runway diminishes. But you have to be okay with that. What that causes is like you as an entrepreneur need to make very, very strategic decisions of where you are going to place cash to spend, that is going to be, as we like to call it, for every dollar that you spend, you get $3. That to me is a profitable business. And if you can get there, and if you can have that equation and that ratio start to flip on the other side to profitability, that's what you want. But it is a constant monitoring, I would say month to month, maybe even week to week, that you need to start to actually make some trade offs. And you need to understand what is actually going to bring money back into the business. And if you can't tell that story, then that's going to be a really hard road. Your runway is going to diminish.
Any stories? Any anecdotes? I mean, I don't want to, take clients down, but
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
one client. No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
but I mean, there are
Well,
even
yeah.
macroscopic out in the world companies that we would know. I mean, there are these sorts of things are great lessons, and they're
Yeah.
dramatically represented sometimes in very public ways.
Yeah. The typical kind of, this is like a very macro view of it, but um, I have clients all the time that will tell me, and this is where I enter into the business. They'll say, "Hey, I have an $8 million business." It's like, great. And this is 8 million of reoccurring revenue. So they have a P&L sheet. They potentially look profitable. I come in, they have $8 million. And what we do is an analysis on that actual $8 million. Because at the end of the day, in the world that I live in, when we say software as a service, that is an annual subscription or a monthly subscription. We are trying to constantly win the customer back. So I like to come in and do a health check on their revenue.
Hmm.
Is this sustainable? Are these, we go back to the definition that we just had about the ideal customer profile. Did we sell to the right people?
Right.
Our reoccurring revenue, is it attached to people that are actually seeing realized value? And when you do a health audit check on the revenue at hand, sometimes like $8 million can be wonderful. You can look at that and say, that's a great little Easter egg. But at the end of the day, they might actually only have a $4 million business, because if their customers aren't seeing value, if your burritos start to taste bad, you're not going to have repeat customers. They're going to
Mhm.
tell other people, and then that's going to diminish, and then you're going to start to see churn or lack of attendance,
Right.
or the people are going to go away because you aren't actually bringing that ROI back into. And so I know that's a very high level, but if you aren't going back to that idea
Yeah.
market phase while markets change and as you're growing your revenue, that's probably the common misstep number 2, is revalidating your hypothesis as your business grows. Period.
Yeah, 100%. And when you have annual recurring revenue, another favorite acronym,
Woo!
ARR, but when you have that, to understand what it means is really interesting. And I've
Yeah.
loved this because, having been involved in a lot of subscription model
Yeah.
equations, it is very wrong to think that a subscriber is forever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like imagining you don't have to work in a marriage.
Right?
I mean, it's.
Maybe we should go to ARR for marriages.
I think we could do a little better analysis. I think it would make. I think of a lot of
Let's go back to the why.
relationships. That's absolutely right.
Oh
But
my gosh,
what
that's
we
funny.
always used to do, not just is an ROI or a return on investment, we would always talk
Mm-hmm.
about lifetime value.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yes.
if you're in a business and you can find oftentimes published, or your AI can help you find published numbers in any sort of subscription business that will
Mm-hmm.
help you know what the average customer life is. And so if somebody
Yes.
shows up and you think, yeah, well, the big dogs that are doing this are making 200, but I'm going to make $1,000 a customer. That's really probably not
Yeah.
going to happen. And if it does, it should just be your upside.
Yeah. Well, and oh, here comes another acronym, but I won't say the acronym.
Dude, come on, do it, but you just tell
I,
us what it is. No, the acronyms are great. Just tell me what the heck they are. That's all.
well, the beautiful thing is, and I'll ask a question. Is it more expensive to acquire a customer or is it more expensive to keep a customer?
Yes.
Just yes.
So I would say that that is so, I would say industry dependent, but I'm going to say that it is more expensive to keep a customer almost always.
Yeah. And that's interesting because you need to know that in your business because that's going to be the customer acquisition cost or the CAC
Yeah. See,
of,
thank you.
yeah,
See,
exactly,
yeah.
of which is the least amount of money that you can either acquire a customer or keep a customer. And so knowing that mentality, you know where to place resources. And so when you look at your business, that's where a lot of this kind of runway either gets spent or allocated to is the least expensive one because that's the path that you want to go down. In most of the businesses that I see, it's actually because they're coming to the equation of problem unaware. They're having to educate the market on even the problem that they're trying to solve because they don't even really know that they have the problem. So they're spending a lot of money up front. So that customer acquisition cost typically in some businesses is very high to acquire a customer. But once they have them, great. That's so good to keep them. Like we can just keep them happy.
Yeah.
Now, there are obviously costs to that. But if you're thinking about extending your runway, it's like, how can we then acquire customers for less? And what does that look like? Well, you know what? I'm going to focus on my existing customers and expanding them. Maybe upselling to offers, maybe building a build your own burrito plus a taco combo. And like, how do I actually go generate revenue from people that are already in our ecosystem? I don't have to go spend money to go find them, but how can I not, for lack of better words, squeeze more out of them and
Yeah.
generate revenue?
Yeah. Well, so you would say that I was wrong, that it's usually much harder to or much more expensive to acquire customers. Is that what you
I
think?
think so. I
Oh,
do.
okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
do.
I, I guess it depends on what your, so
It does. Yes.
here's my question is more, if you get a customer and you know what
Mm-hmm.
the acquisition cost is for that, if
Yeah.
you just assume they're going to be someone that you get their lifetime value is
Yeah.
200, that's one thing. If you want to extend that, because then you have sort of a much broader, that can be a very
Yeah.
expensive thing to do.
Correct.
If what you're doing
Yeah.
is assuming that you're going, you know what they are, they're going to stay that way. And so you need to spend money just to get a
Yeah.
filter of enough people, then
Mm-hmm.
that's different. That's why it may just be a depends. I take my first answer. My
It's a
first
depends.
answer is my last answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in simple terms, I think most people have a music streaming service. Just think
Yeah,
about it as, that's kind of a software as a service.
right.
So let's say Spotify or Apple Music. The lifetime value of capturing me as a customer. So I've been a customer of Spotify for 10 years. Love it.
Yep.
I've gotten the whole family on there. Like my lifetime value as a Spotify user
Yeah.
over the last 10 years, astronomical to them. I was a Apple streaming customer for 1 year. My customer acquisition cost potentially could have been the same between the two, but that cost Apple more money because they didn't keep me. They didn't. It wasn't. I wasn't happy with the service. I didn't really like it. So that's what you mean by like lifetime value.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, so how much does
Yeah.
Spotify, when I think of
Oh,
what the
yeah.
cost is of
Or
keeping
Netflix.
you, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
every time they're spending money to make something you can't not have, that's just a
Fair.
gigantic number. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that feels that, and again, it probably the
Could be
industries
both.
that I haunt, which are more like the entertainment
Yeah.
industry types,
Yeah.
those are the ones where our equation usually we're just thinking of, yeah, we want to know what our lifetime value is, but the
Mm-hmm.
business itself doesn't thrive, survive, and work unless
Yeah.
we're investing in what we think of as customer retention, even
Mm-hmm.
though what it really is product development,
Yeah. Yeah.
which, yeah, there we go. We're in quibbling
Well,
now. We're going to go to the
yes.
yes, but
Yeah.
I think it's yes and, if
Well,
that
it's both.
matters,
It's
right?
awareness. It's
Yeah.
whichever you just need to know awareness if it's more expensive to keep or to acquire. And I think that in your business model, thinking through that and having awareness around that is gonna grow revenue.
We have gone so far on the journey. We have started at the do you really wanna? We've gone to the do you have runway? We are now into the what's it look like once you're there and it's working pretty much, but you want to keep going. And I think mistakenly people look at the next phase too early, which is people
Hmm.
think I'm going to create a business so I can exit it. And so that's one, you've been in many of these ecospheres that
Oh
I
yeah.
want to dive into a little bit. Number one, with
Hmm.
the motivation early on, and whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. And then
Hmm.
we'll talk a little bit about what those other things are.
Well, you should always, as an entrepreneur and a builder and a founder, you should have some sort of end game. Like, why am I building this? Most of the time, it is for the solving of the problem, the more,
Mhm.
existential ones. But if you don't really have a strategy further down the line, and you can go one of three buckets, which is I'm going to sell this company and make some money. I'm going to IPO. So I'm going to be a public company. I'm going to, become a generational company, as they would call it. Or I'm just going to keep my company and it's going to sustain my life. And this is my journey. And that's what I want to do. So in my mind, I do think that building towards one of those paths, once we've gotten through the idea and the building of the product, I think you do, in my opinion, need to pick a lane because that's actually how you're going to build your company too. Look, I've been a part of a pre-IPO and acquisition company. I've seen that happen. I've seen the journey that they went on, and they were very transparent with the employees that worked there that this is what we are doing. This is our path. We would like to IPO, and this is why we make decisions. And I think as a founding team, if you can paint that picture and that vision, it helps strategically align everyone to the decisions that need to be made for the business that we're building for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I know I've been at a startup where I've asked the CEO, what path are we on? Because that
Mm.
helps me understand, do I go invest in this or do I like stand down here? Like, what are we actually trying to build? So in my own opinion, I do think that you need to have that vision.
Yes, and of the three buckets, it's interesting that the first one is solving the problem, which is not really an exit, but
Correct.
it is a motivation, and I love that you start with the motivation, because waking up and going to a place that
Hmm.
you're building without a purpose probably isn't very helpful.
Or like joyous. It's not very joyous either.
Yeah.
You want to do that. But yeah, the other two buckets I think are strategic builds of how you run the business. And it does manifest in that $0 to $20 million, early stage journey of how you set things up internally to be able to achieve that. There are many milestones. So,
Well, having run public and private companies, the two buckets that are remaining after fulfilling your purpose of doing something meaningful are very different, and they have their own very interesting little
yeah.
demons. So, dare to unpack that for me just a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Yeah, well, the two buckets, in my opinion, are we're IPOing and we're going to become a generational company, or we're selling this thing. We're exiting. We're going to go live on a beach in Tahiti. Whatever your dream is.
Or you can
So
be
the
a
first,
private company. You can be a private company and not exit.
that's fair. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can even be Adele, and not Adele the singer, but Dell the company.
If you'd like, I could sing an Adele song. Though I love Adele.
Same. I do
Let's
too.
let's get sad just for a
Let's
minute.
get sad,
Okay. Yeah.
just for a bit. But Dell went public and then went private back again. Like
Uh-huh.
there is this journey. But let's just take that first bucket of we're going to IPO. Look, I've been on that vision journey and what that looks like. And when the company makes a decision like that, or you make a decision that you want to be a generational company, there are aspects in the business that you need to get in order. And this is financially sound metrics. We need to have our runway be vast. We need to make sure that I'm not even going to say EBITDA, but the value of our company, we need to have customers that are willing to pay that customer value. When we think about IPOing, it's market share. And so you're building from a go-to-market standpoint, from a product perspective. Are we building a platform? How can we continue to outpace our customer, or our competitors? So there's a lot of like product decisions. There's a lot of go-to-market decisions that go along with that, and that's like a big company. On the
I,
other hand, if you're like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that people that I think of those two things very differently.
Mm,
Mostly because of the impact that it has on the people who started the thing and the people who work at the thing. And
oh yeah,
I think those are not perhaps weighed in upon enough,
no,
because it changes everything when you are quarterly having to do earnings calls that tell you how you have benefited investors versus
yes,
what you think of as your longer term mission. So if you see some of the
mm-hmm,
very successful private companies that did not go public,
yep,
what they did in many instances they never could have done if
yeah,
they had been
agreed,
a public company. And so
yep,
I think those decisions, like everything, a decision point allows
mm-hmm,
you with your team, with your people, because at the end of the day, a company is a bunch of people getting together and making something happen. But those
mm-hmm.
decisions make a difference for your future. So I think it's important to have those discussions and do that.
Absolutely. I was a part of Tableau Software's IPO, and it was different pre and post. Obviously, we then were a public company on the New York Stock Exchange, and we had to answer to the public. And man, those earning calls, you would think that we would be building a company for the intrinsic values of what we were doing. And really, it's about the market. Needless to say, I'm not saying padding numbers, but you do unnatural things because you are a public company and you're under the scrutiny of your investors and your shareholders and the public. And it was a very different world after that. Still fun, but
I
it was wild.
totally understand. But I think that's why, in the journey, what the journey is,
Yeah.
having a purpose and understanding what it is, it may
Yes.
change. The allure of an IPO is very much like someone who is told they should run for president. It sometimes just changes their very nature or something.
Oh, yes.
So
Hmm.
it
Well,
is, yeah.
I was just going to say, there's also the stigma. I mean, we're talking IPO or different buckets of where the company goes, but even in the early stages. So let's bring it back to either Burrito stand or so. The kind of smaller version of an IPO is taking on investor money, and I've seen both camps where there's a very big carrot dangle. I was a part of a couple of Series A, Series Bs. And not only is obviously money helpful to put back into the business to extend runway to be able to do the things that you have like a vision as a founder, but once you take that money, you now answer to the investor bank, and those QBRs or those board meetings become very contentious. And a lot of founders take it without understanding the reality of what that actually comes with. It's not just money. It is not just money. It's hopefully a good partnership, but I've seen a lot of not good partnerships. And then I've also seen founders that don't want to take money because they are scared of that. They don't want to give up power of their company build. And so I think, IPO is obviously very grandiose, but these investor and VCs and seed rounds happen every day.
Yeah.
And that's what, a founder is facing.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We could drop that right in sort of the runway piece of our discussion,
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
very difficult to do the planning as you go forward. So we sort of talked about runway as an initial decision, but that is a recurring all the time decision and discussion.
All the time. Yeah. Like if I do X, it's going to cost me Y, but it's going to yield this. And so those equations are always what ifs. And it's taking money is really hard.
And because I can't help it, I have to dig deeper, which is the sort of piece of these equations that you allude to, but there are very specific things that happen when you're talking to investors at different stages. At family and friends, we often talk about that beginning time when you go out and you say, my burrito truck is going to work. I love where stick to the burrito truck.
I love it so much. Yeah.
So if you're going to make this great burrito truck, and you most often get that money from friends and family. I was on a panel with the guy who started Wahoo Tacos. I don't know if you know them, but they're
I do.
all over the country, probably the world by now. But I always ask people in those circumstances, what thing happened, or two or three things happened, without which you wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
His thing was he got a $30,000 loan from somebody in his family who believed in him. And that's the only way the first truck got opened up and they started making those tacos. So it's that stage which is important. And then you talk about Series A and Series B. And again, I want to make this accessible so people understand. Series A, I know this is going to shock everyone out there, is before Series B, and it's raising money, but it's usually a more formal kind of process where you're then going out to sometimes more sophisticated investors who can be great partners. So there are some of them that can really make it what you do be bigger, and you all benefit from it. Also, though, if they just come in and they take too much, so you cannot incentivize people later, including your employees, that's a problem. So it's all in the deal at that stage.
All in the deal. Yes. Yeah. And it's typically what, around 10 to 12 million. I mean, Series A's are wild these days. I mean, they've grown so much, but you're right. It is after the kind of friends and family seedish rounds, a couple $500,000 here and there, but it's where we come full circle of where are you placing the bets now that you have this money, and what's going to yield that every dollar you gain 3. And so that's where we see that kind of glooming cloud of, if you don't have experience, if you don't have a framework, if you don't have a VC or an operating unit that can help you, or resources, that's really that's going to be a very a gamble, if you will, like playing roulette with money, and it's playing roulette with an equity share of your company at the end of the day.
Yeah. And VC is venture capitalists. So the people who do this for a living and come in and oftentimes in early rounds, particularly, are very expensive. So it can be
Yes.
very expensive
Yeah.
money. And sometimes even you can lose the control. So you aren't able to make
Yeah.
decisions. And that's, sometimes you make a Faustian sort of agreement because you don't have much
You
choice.
don't have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually been, I think, really good democratization or a lifting of the hood of how this kind of pans out or works is Shark Tank on TV. I
Yeah.
think it's a mini version of someone presenting their idea market fit. They have initial numbers, they have this hypothesis. Some have a product or not. Like they're kind of in that stage where they're maybe have a prototype. And then you get to see live people kind of doing a trade-off. No, I'll take 50% here, or no, I'm going to take 13, but I need 300,000. And so I think that show has actually been really a small piece successful of helping people
Yeah,
see
for sure.
kind of under the hood of what it is like to be an entrepreneur in America these days. So
Yeah. No, I think that it has. I also think that there's a tremendous amount of pressure there that you oftentimes don't have other places. It's sort of, yes, I'd like,
oh
oh, I like, whoa. And yes, person, that's a great show. It's
yeah,
fun to watch. Yeah.
great, and like drama and probably unrealistic, but at least you can
Yeah.
understand the levers that you can
Yeah.
pull to ask for investments and what that would be. So it's always been really helpful to kind of watch those shows.
All right, last two things. I promise. I
Okay.
can't believe we've spent this much time talking. I can't believe you've made it this long through this whole process. Whoa, yes. Uh, the one of them's AI. So we talked about
Yeah.
it in terms of letting it be helpful for you, but being aware of it in
Mm-hmm.
markets today is a whole new ball of wax.
Yeah. Yeah. AI is very interesting right now. Look, there's stigma that AI is going to take jobs and replace things, where in reality, it's really helping, I think, to enhance a lot of the more mundane things that I'm doing in my life. Look, I'm not an AI expert. I use it pretty much every day, though. I think uh, the two things is I need to learn, or you, my two pro tips about AI is that I think the goodness about AI is that it's helping us become better communicators. And I'm going to stand my ground on that one, because if you've ever tried to build a prompt in AI and it's returned something that you did not want, or like this is not what I meant. To me, I struggle a lot with communication and being very clear and concise. And so AI has actually helped me become a better communicator,
Hmm.
better prompter, better concise and clear when I'm speaking or asking things of people. The second piece of a pro tip is there's a lot of different AI models out there. And so I would recommend that any AI that you are using or anything that you're trying to glean, whether it's a prompt or build in a large language model or do something with AI, is that you take that same prompt and put it into 4 or 5 different AI companies. You have Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, all of the things, a Chat
Mhm.
GPT, OpenAI. I would highly recommend taking that same prompt across all, so that you learn the AI LLM model of ones that are out there that is right for you, and how it's going to work for like your common language, your prompting, and yielding the results. So I've been playing around with that, and it's very interesting, the different variations of of returns that I get from my prompts. So pro tip there.
And now this is a perfect example of how I gave the wrong prompt. So what I meant was in all of
Oh
the
no.
context of the business. No, I mean it was my prompt. I'm sure in in all of the businesses that you consult with, or as we're building our own businesses, AI is profoundly affecting markets so much.
Mm,
How do I pay attention to that in my analysis for what I'm doing, whether I should do it, and how I
mm-hmm.
continue to flourish in it?
Oh my gosh, this is like the entire idea market fit can really be a conversation with AI. And really what we've built are frameworks where once you've established, hey, this is the problem that I want to solve, you can actually take this is the problem I want to solve, insert problem. So we're helping you actually build these prompts in our framework too.
Yeah.
Here's the problem that I want to solve. Who are the individuals that would actually, that would pay money for this based on this problem, and start to like actually use these prompts. So we have that built out for finding your ideal customer profile. We have prompts built out of here is the actual problem I'm solving. I am in this area. I live in this city. I need to find a burrito truck. Where are the burrito trucks that are within 50? Yeah, within 50, feet of XYZ. Or what are the types of people that frequent burrito trucks? Or what is the cost of an actual burrito? So, what we're doing is we're helping give not just like, hey, go use AI, but here are the prompts that you can use once you're into the framework or you need to like validate some of this research and analysis, and have AI go do the work for you and then bring it back. And then also, pro tip number 3 is always, always, always check AI, the resources that you have, the citations that it gives you, and making sure that you don't just copy and paste and take that for granted. End it with a human brain afterwards.
Be a human, for
Be a
heaven's
human.
sake. Be a human. I love that. And RVNU.co is the name of the company that you have
Yep.
co-founded, and that has resources for people at all levels of the 0 to 20 million, let's build it, make it work. And so
Yeah.
they can come find you and get all of that. And then the button hook that I would put on the AI piece is just there's no analysis you should be making for whether to start, continue, or grow a business that shouldn't include a view of the impact that AI has on your
Mm-hmm.
market and how it will impact it, because anybody who's surprised now just wasn't paying attention, is what I
Yeah.
would say. Okay, I told you there were
Yes.
two. Now it's the last one. All right,
Ooh, okay.
the last one is purpose, because I
Mm,
believe in the world of I don't know if you want to call it capitalism, neo capitalism, post neo capitalism, depending
mm-hmm.
on what economists you're talking to and what part of the world, they'll call it any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we oftentimes get into these conversations and don't do is sort of take a little moment to reflect on the impact of this thing called capital, money, and business on us
Mm-hmm.
individually and
Yeah.
on the humans around us. So I think it's good to take a moment like that, because you are advising people all the time. And I'm sure you put that into your equation. What do you tell us in that sphere, which is, we just laughingly said, let's be human. But
Yeah.
how is it to be human, and what are things that I should be keep very much in mind?
Yeah. I think purpose in the sake of what we're talking about today. So the reason why our mission at RVNU, but also we are humans running a company as well. It's not just about taking dollars
Right.
from people. It's look, I benefit from the technology and the innovation that people are creating every day, and I love it. I look at the Spotify's of the world, the Netflixes, the we're on a podcast, the things that are changing in the market and the technology that is invented that makes my life easier, happier, able to connect with people, to flourish in a way that I can show up and have conversations and connect with family. To me, it's like that is, we live in America where I think 1,200 startups or unicorn startups are like the top innovation of our society. And so if we can support those people on their journey to develop and solve problems in the world, and this is not just the Spotify's, this is also vaccines, this is things that are saving lives. This is so like we need to help people be bold and audacious and invent things that are going to make our life easier. And so if we can help people do that with podcasts like this or sharing the lessons learned. You had Mark Griffin on, and he said, look, if someone can learn from the mistakes that I've done, then I'm going to shout it from a megaphone so that they don't have to make the mistakes and they can like take the lessons that we've learned. And so sharing these so that 1% of people either learn more, succeed more, and invent more and make our lives easier. That to me is a great purpose in life.
I love it. I love it. Well, with that, you came prepared to send us off with some sort of information or resource that you found to be helpful so I can better understand how to find information for myself. So dare to bring it on, Laura.
Dare to bring it on. As far as resources.
Yeah, well, so I think of healthcare for me. The Mayo Clinic is a place that I can go and always get great information on healthcare.
Mm.
So people find things that I don't find in order to
Mm.
have a go-to. What's something that you go to and you find that it really helps you curate your information?
Oh, you know what's okay? Well, first of all, this is going to be kind of not a typical answer, but
Yay.
but over the last year, my husband and I built a sauna in our backyard.
Okay.
So, and so hear me out. This is my, I'm going to go like Yoda on you.
Woo.
But I think a lot of the time we're in front of screens. We are inundated with media. We are inundated with like a lot of things around us, TV, sports, that we don't take a lot of time to like sit with ourselves. And so what I've found is 20 minutes in a sauna with ultimate quiet, whether that's meditation or something, sometimes is the best resource because I am only with myself and I'm only problem solving and finding the resources within, which is very Yoda like. But I do think that humans can solve their own problems. And so taking that time to be awareness and in yourself, I do think that more people should take the time to just listen to themselves. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Because it's true. When I have a really, really hard problem that I'm solving, I get into the sauna. And then often it tells me then to go to the Mayo Clinic or something and go check out a resource. But
And I feel like I should just let us have that moment of silence. But Laura Wheeler, thank you for joining us at Smarter You and helping us figure out how even to decide if we're going to be that great entrepreneur and if we dare to do it, how dastardly and wonderful it can be. So
awesome.
till then, see everybody next time.
Thank you.